more you let go, the more it all comes together. You've been taught the opposite. That success requires holding tight. That control equates to safety. That if you surrender something sacred, your image, your grip on certainty, you risk unraveling. You believe the myths of keeping the pieces, keeping your roles, your pain, your personas in order to hold your life together. But control doesn't build a life. It fractures one. Every tightly clenched fist suffocates the flow. Every guarded secret dims the signal. Every identity held too tight becomes brittle, destined to break under pressure. You keep pouring energy into castles built on shifting ground, relationships sustained by effort, careers bound by performance, clarity crafted from hustle, and you feel stretched, exhausted, but not alive. What if life worked differently? What if the architecture of your destiny isn't found in accumulation but in release? Carl Jung taught that individuation, the becoming of the self, requires shedding false layers, dismantling inherited illusions, and descending into places of unknown truth. You must let go of what was never yours to begin with to make space for what's meant. Every belief, every identity, every plan you cling to without alignment becomes a block, an anchor, hurting more than holding. That's euphoria, the steady sinking caused by holding on to internal cords that no longer serve. You think you're sinking because life got heavy, but you're sinking because you're still carrying dead weight. And what breaks you now is precisely what you refused to release earlier. Mindset, the stories that shape behavior, is toxic until it's cleaned with courage. Belief without alignment is delusion. Clarity born from obsession bleeds into anxiety. Vision fixed on outcome resists adaptation. Purpose manufactured by wanting warps into duty. Discipline enforced by fear collapses into burnout. Without release, none of it holds. So you grind, you push, you chase, you push harder into resistance, and nothing aligns. Because the truth behind every shift you crave is rooted in emptiness, in the pockets you make when you let go, in the pause that comes when you stop performing, in the quiet where clarity rises. The more you let go of the old you, the freer you become. The more you stop defending your identity, the more authentic your expression becomes. The more you unclutch the illusion, the more reality flows. The more you surrender certainty, the more wisdom surfaces. The more you release expectation, the more beauty arrives unscheduled. The more you empty, the more life fills. This isn't passive, it's radical. It's sovereignty unblunted by external anchors. It's the resilience born in releasing the familiar. And when you release, the real begins to converge. Your actions become choice, not compulsion. Your words become weightless clarity, not defensive noise. Your relationships become resonance, not utility. Your steps become stride, not scramble. Because aligned life doesn't demand, it arrives. It doesn't force, it forms. And the space inside you, the gap you left, when you drop the lies, the performances, the timelines, that space becomes your gateway. Inside it, your true mind emerges. Your true calling emerges. Your true family. Your true path. Not forced, but found. Not pieced together, but spontaneously coherent. When you release the personas, the roles, the old ambitions, when you forgive the ghosts and step out of the chains they forged, when you say no more to compulsion, you let life orchestrate itself through you. You become magnetic, heart-centered, spirit-aligned, energy-honest, rather than desperate or defensive. You become the calm in the storm, not because the storm subsided, but because you stopped fighting it. Most people fear pulling back. They fear that if they stop pushing, everything falls apart. But what if everything falls into place instead? The discipline of release isn't weakness, it's refinement. It separates the precious from the junk. It distills your paths, so your choices matter and nothing unnecessary is allowed to distract your presence. It anchors your gratitude not in gain, but in grace. You stop riding emotional roller coasters to feel alive. You stop needing validation to feel worthy. You stop forcing closure and rituals and scripts and become whole inside the space life gave you. Adaptability doesn't distort your identity, it clarifies it. Resilience isn't the armor you wear, it's the freedom you walk in. Learning isn't the chase of answers, it's the release of what you thought you knew. And in that release comes integration. Your past finds resolution, not as guilt or obsession, but as wisdom. Your pain becomes pilgrimage, not punishment. Your failures become formation, not fracture. As you let go, the scattered across your life aligns. People who resonate appear naturally. Opportunities aren't sought, they emerge. Projects breathe, not strain. Gratitude breathes, not forces. In every moment, the simple act of surrender becomes the signal for synchronicity. Doors open before you call, not after. Your intuition becomes directive, not hesitant. Your vision becomes living, not imagined. But this doesn't end in peace alone. It catalyzes creation. You don't just survive what broke you, you transcend it. You don't just overcome crisis, you become the architect of something far larger. And when everything seems uncertain, you no longer ask, "What now?" You whisper to your spirit, "What's next in my becoming?" Then you move, not fast, not frantic, but faithful. You don't hustle for peace, you live it in every simple gesture. Your gratitude becomes light. Your discipline becomes devotion. Your action becomes artistry. Your presence becomes the invitation others sense before they see. And life flows, without friction, without force. Because you no longer hold for life, you make room for it. With every release, with every surrender, with every breath that lets go of old scripts, the greater structure of your destiny begins to form, not around your ego's agenda, but around your soul's alignment. And that is power, deep, unshakable power. That is legacy, quiet, influential legacy built not on achievement, but on authenticity, not on control, but on coherence. This is what happens when the more you let go, the more it comes together. You become the calm anchor in someone's chaos, the clear mirror in someone's confusion, the steady force in someone's shaking faith. Not because you fixed anything, because you stayed with your truth, and your truth began to create. This is the invitation of release, to stop shaping everything around your expectations and let life reshape you around your essence. Now breathe, let it, receive, and watch how what matures in the silence of surrender unites into something more powerful than any plan. It unites into something that doesn't just look good on the outside, but feels right on the inside. Something that doesn't require performance to maintain. Something that doesn't collapse the moment your willpower runs dry. Because it wasn't built on force. It was built on faith. Not the kind of faith you're taught to perform in places of worship or preach when you're afraid, but the deeper kind. The kind that lives in your bones when you finally remember that you're not here to control life. You're here to align with it. And alignment begins where control ends. It begins in the letting go of timelines that no longer nourish your rhythm, letting go of relationships that ask you to abandon yourself to keep them alive, letting go of plans that were born from fear of falling behind, not from the pull of destiny, letting go of your need to be understood by people still living in their own illusions. Because the truth is, you don't need them to see it. You don't need them to understand your evolution. You don't need them to approve of your release. Because what's coming together inside of you is no longer dependent on external consensus. It's coming together because you finally stopped resisting your becoming. And that becoming, it doesn't ask for noise. It doesn't ask for hustle. It doesn't ask for strategy layered on top of exhaustion. It asks for space. It asks for stillness. It asks for surrender. The most terrifying and liberating thing you'll ever do is let go of what you thought would save you and realize that what you are is the thing you've been waiting for. And when you live like that, when your life is no longer driven by attachment but by alignment, everything shifts. You stop bracing for impact and start preparing for arrival. You stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And start trusting, what if it's working through me? You stop chasing what you lost and start anchoring into what's rising. And what's rising is you, the real you, the unchained, unbothered, unapologetically clear you. Not the version that needs applause, but the one that creates peace in silence. Not the version that forces outcomes, but the one that co-creates with presence. Not the version that clings, but the one that trusts. Because the more you let go, the more you remember. You were never meant to hold it all together. You were meant to be held by truth, by flow, by your own damn soul. And once you feel that, you stop clenching. You stop shrinking. You stop explaining. You stop negotiating with chaos for a seat at a table that doesn't reflect your worth. You build your own table, your own rhythm, your own life, and you let it come together in ways you never could have orchestrated. Because now you're not in control. You're in alignment. And alignment brings everything that force promised, but never delivered. Peace, power, clarity, flow, and a quiet joy that comes from knowing you don't have to chase what is already yours. You just have to let go of everything that's not. And when you do, the rest takes care of itself. It takes care of itself not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you've stopped making it harder by fighting its natural current. You've stopped trying to solve everything through overthinking. You've stopped negotiating with your intuition. You've stopped asking fear for permission to move forward. And now things begin to move, not in frantic motion, but in divine timing. Things arrive not because you demand them, but because you are now ready to receive them. You've created space inside your nervous system, inside your thoughts, inside your heart. And space is the invitation life needs to fill you with what's real. Because life doesn't give you what you beg for. It gives you what you're aligned to hold. And alignment is a product of surrender, a product of letting go. The more you let go of needing to be right, the more truth finds you. The more you let go of needing to be strong, the more strength inhabits you. The more you let go of needing to have it all figured out, the more you begin to live from faith, not formulas. This is where grace lives, not in your accomplishments, not in your performance, but in your willingness to drop the illusion that you have to carry it all. You don't. You were never meant to. You're not here to be the master puppeteer of outcomes. You're here to be a vessel of clarity, of truth, of purpose. But that vessel can't hold anything sacred until it empties everything artificial. So you let it go. All of it. The old identities that no longer serve you. The pressure to prove your worth through pain. The compulsion to fix others so you don't have to sit with yourself. The false urgency that tells you you're falling behind. The narrative that your life must look like everyone else's to matter. You release it not because you've given up, but because you've awakened. And in that awakening, you realize that nothing real can ever be lost. What's yours finds you. What's aligned stays. What's sacred returns. And what's not, it fades on its own, without drama, without resistance, without your intervention. That's what letting go creates. Ease, not laziness, not indifference, but sovereign ease. The kind that terrifies people still addicted to struggle. The kind that magnetizes miracles. The kind that whispers to you in moments of stillness, yes, this is who you are now. Whole, unhurried, unmoved by the noise, unattached to outcomes, and completely available to life. Not the life your ego scripted, but the one your soul has been waiting for you to allow. So let it come, let it build, let it break what it must, let it bloom where it will. Because the more you let go, the more it all comes together, and not a single piece will be missing. Not a single piece missing. Not a single moment wasted. Not a single tear, breath, or breakdown irrelevant. Everything that broke you shaped you. Everything that left you freed you. Everything that didn't make sense taught you how to trust what doesn't need to. Because now you understand, not all clarity comes from answers. Some of the clearest moments in your life will arrive without explanation. A relationship ends, and somehow your soul exhales. A plan falls apart, and suddenly you feel lighter. A door slams shut, and in the silence that follows, you hear yourself again. That's the intelligence of life, of your own inner rhythm. It doesn't negotiate with your ego. It doesn't bend to your fears. It dismantles everything built on what's false until all that remains is real. And real is enough. Real is everything. The more you let go of needing it to look a certain way, the more you experience what it was always meant to be. The more you let go of micromanaging outcomes, the more those outcomes begin to align. The more you release the energy of force, the more you embody the energy of flow. And flow never lies. Flow doesn't deceive. Flow doesn't manipulate. Flow doesn't wear a mask to survive. It shows up honest, unfiltered, unburdened, and it invites you to do the same. You're not meant to grind your way into alignment. You're meant to return to it, quietly, consistently, gracefully, even if it's messy, even if it's uncertain, even if your knees are shaking while you do it. Because courage isn't loud. It's steady. It's the quiet yes you whisper to your soul when everything else is telling you to hold on tighter. It's the breath you take right before you release what's been poisoning your peace. It's the decision you make when you finally choose freedom over familiarity. And freedom will always require a letting go of roles, of routines, of false identities you've outgrown, of stories you've told yourself for so long they became cages. But the second you let go of the bars, you realize the door was never locked. You were never trapped. You were only afraid of what it would feel like to fly. But now you know. Letting go didn't break you. It built you. Letting go didn't take everything. It gave you everything that matters. And now you move forward, not weighed down, but lifted, not fearful, but full of fire, not chasing, but receiving. Because this time you're not forcing life to meet you where you were. You're rising to meet life where it always wanted to take you. And all of it, all the flow, all the freedom, all the fulfillment begins with one sacred, irreversible act, letting go. Letting go, the most courageous act of all. Because it's not passive, it's not weakness, it's not giving up, it's giving in to something higher than your plan, to something deeper than your programming, to something more eternal than your ego. It's trusting that you no longer have to grip your way to greatness. You align your way there, not by clinging, but by opening, not by pushing, but by receiving, not by convincing the world, but by remembering who you are without it, and who you are without the pressure, without the chase, without the fear is something terrifyingly powerful. Because once you let go of what's been distracting you, numbing you, pacifying you, you are left with one thing, your essence. And essence is the one thing this world can't fake. It can't imitate it, can't replace it. It can only recognize it. And when your essence leads, you no longer enter rooms trying to be liked. You enter with peace that people feel before you speak. You no longer need to prove your value. You embody it. You no longer hustle to be seen. You see yourself so clearly, the world has no choice but to mirror it back. You stop reacting. You start resonating. You stop controlling. You start creating. Because your life isn't a list of achievements anymore. It's a work of art. And every stroke every scar, every moment of release becomes part of its masterpiece. You're not afraid of falling apart anymore because you trust what you become every time you do. You're not afraid of missing out because you're no longer out of alignment with yourself. You're not afraid of what's leaving because you're making space for what's arriving. And what's arriving? Everything that matches your frequency now. Everything that feels like peace, like truth, like home. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to beg for it. You are it. And the universe, it responds to who you've become. Not the masks, not the effort, but the essence. Because the more you let go of what was never yours, the more life reveals what always was. Yours, whole, true, aligned, waiting. And now, you've finally arrived. Not because you got everything you wanted, but because you let go of everything that wasn't. And when you do that, when you surrender fully, you don't just find peace. You become it. You don't just find alignment. You are it. And your entire life bends to reflect that truth beautifully, effortlessly, completely, completely without gaps, without force, without fragmentation. Because when you finally stop trying to hold it all together, you see what's been holding you all along. Something deeper, something infinite, not an idea, not a philosophy, a knowing, a frequency, a pulse of wholeness underneath every loss, every fear, every breakdown you thought you wouldn't survive. And now, you're not surviving, you're becoming. You're not building from fear, you're sculpting from truth. You're not gripping for control, you're resting in alignment. And that rest, it's not laziness. It's not apathy. It's power. The power to say, I no longer need to chase. I no longer need to force. I no longer need to prove. Because I trust that what flows from my truth will find its way into the world without me having to break myself to make it happen. That is where strength lives. Not in tension. In release. Not in domination. In devotion. Devotion to the process, to the unfolding, to the quiet intelligence of letting go over and over until only the real remains. And now when people ask you how it all came together, you won't have a neat answer. You'll just smile, because you'll know it didn't happen when you fought harder. It happened when you stopped fighting altogether. It happened the moment you trusted that letting go wasn't falling behind, it was falling into place. And now your life is no longer a scramble. It's a symphony because you stopped trying to conduct every note. You just became the instrument. And now the universe plays through you, cleanly, clearly, effortlessly. So if you forget again, and you will come back here, to the knowing that nothing real can be forced, to the wisdom that your peace is the greatest signal you can ever emit, to the truth that the more you let go, the more it all comes together. And it will, not because you demanded it, but because you finally allowed it. So exhale, step back, unclench, release, and watch your life rise to meet you. Rise to meet you not as a stranger, but as an old friend. Not as a reward, but as your reflection. Because the world does not respond to who you pretend to be. It responds to who you are, beneath all the armor, beneath all the strategies, beneath the mask of perfection you've worn for so long, it started to feel like your skin. But that mask, it's gone now. And in its place, presence, not polished, not curated, just true. You show up without needing to explain. You walk without needing to justify. You stand without needing to be loud. Because now, your stillness speaks. Your integrity roars. Your authenticity lands like thunder in a world numb from noise. You don't shrink in the presence of chaos anymore. You center it. You don't get pulled into urgency anymore. You redirect it. You don't lose yourself trying to make others comfortable. You remind them what self-respect feels like. This is the power that comes from letting go, not just of things, or people, or paths, but of the version of you that was never free, the version that kept performing, the version that feared being too much and not enough all at once, the version that sacrificed their soul to fit into systems that never saw them clearly. That version is done, buried, released, and what's rising in its place? Someone untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you're anchored, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally care about the right things, not because you've hardened, but because you've softened into your strength. And that strength, it's not the kind that rushes. It's the kind that waits, that breathes, that listens, that lets go again and again and again, until everything that's left is sacred, until every step you take echoes in alignment, until your entire life becomes a signal. This is what it looks like to trust the process, to honor the unfolding, to live unchained from force and fully tuned into flow. So let the rest wonder how you did it. Let the noise continue without you. Let the chaos keep spinning in the corners you've outgrown. You're no longer holding on to survive. You're letting go to thrive. And in that surrender, you've already won. You've already arrived. Because the more you let go, the more it all becomes one thing. Whole, true, unstoppable. And now, here you are. Not broken, not lost, but empty of everything that was never yours, and full of everything you were always meant to be. No longer clinging to timelines, no longer bracing for collapse, no longer searching outside for what's been whispering within. You've remembered, not because someone taught you, not because you found the perfect quote, the perfect book, or the perfect plan, but because you finally stopped trying to perfect yourself long enough to feel what was already perfect inside you. Peace, power, presence, a depth that doesn't ask to be seen, only felt, a force that doesn't push but pulls, a knowing that doesn't beg but becomes. This is your life now, not the one they said you had to earn, not the one you thought you had to chase, but the one that rises every time you choose truth over tension, every time you choose to let go. So let this be your vow, to never again confuse holding on with being strong, to never again chase what requires you to abandon yourself, to never again shrink to be safe. Instead, breathe, stand, release, and allow, because the more you let go, the more you rise, the more you surrender, the more you are seen, the more you trust, the more it all comes together. Not one piece missing, not one moment wasted, not 1 ounce of your truth ignored. Only everything real, everything aligned, everything already yours. Finally arriving, because you finally made space, and you finally remembered. You never had to force what was always meant for you.